Welcome to the Pop Culture Lab, where we break down your favorite movies and TV shows. This week, we are recapping the year thus far. That's right, we're back. Cameron, let's get in the lab.
Turn that up in my headphones.
Oh, baby!
We're here.
We're back. We are back.
It's May. We live.
It's May. Wow, our last podcast was on January 30th. Yikes.
Yeah. You know, it's been a year for all of us. And I think we should just get credit for still existing and still recording.
We should. You're right. We should get credit for the bare minimum. Good call, Cameron.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm giving myself a little pat on the back.
Good job.
Here we are.
Yeah,
we got glasses of whiskey in hand.
We showed up.
A little liquid courage.
That's right. We showed up at all. So you're welcome.
That's right. To our dedicated following.
All 27 of you, you are welcome individually.
Yes, and we have been busy with lots of things personally, but we have also been busy consuming media in the last 4 months.
Tell me, do you have anything personal or media related to share, sir?
Oh, man, what do I got? I just got back from Costa Rica with my family, which was lovely to see my family, but I gotta say, the tropics are not for me.
Wow, you sound like a sticky 75-year-old man. What's the issue?
I don't love the tropics. It's just a little too hot for my old bones.
Yeah, your blanket stating the tropics after Costa Rica?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, kinda. It's miserable. I don't know how people can exist in such a setting. There's very little like breeze. It's 90 degrees. It's 90+% humidity. There's
Linen.
mosquitoes everywhere. It's miserable.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I live in Seattle. It's
like Hawaii.
Hawaii is perfect. Hawaii is a paradise, but that's not in the tropics.
Well, it's not in the Caribbean tropics, but I mean, wouldn't you call it tropical? It's not the tropics?
I guess it is tropical.
Does tropics mean you're closer to the equator?
Yes, yeah. I think it's between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
And I think, Hawaii is just barely in there. Yeah. But it's in the middle of the ocean. It's beautiful. I mean, there's a lovely breeze.
I see your point.
Yeah, not so much as you get closer to the equator. It gets hotter and hotter.
See.
Yeah. How about you, man? What's new with you?
Oh, not a lot. I'm chipping away. What else? Let's see. What's been going on? I've been watching a lot of stuff too. Juggling a lot. Like more than I care to go into on this podcast, but life's a lot. You get older too, and things get more complicated sometimes. It's interesting.
Sometimes it can be refreshing to just put it all to the side and fire up the mics.
That's right. That's not what we're here for. We are here to let loose, to relax.
Sip on our whiskey.
Yeah, just get away in the lab,
Yes,
chip away.
It's our safe zone, the lab.
That's true. That's true. We say things that we can't say to our wives. Wife, excuse me.
Yeah, our wives, indeed.
For all intents and purposes.
So today we're thinking that we will just have a little informal breakdown of some of the things that stand out that we've been watching or consuming or reading or listening to or whatever that have been, highlights so far in 2024.
Yeah, I think this will be kind of impromptu. I've definitely got a list, but I think what I decide to discuss will just be what I'm feeling in the moment. And you ready to roll, sir?
Let's get going.
All right.
Yeah, I think we can skip the what have we been watching because the whole episode will be what we've been watching.
What have we been watching? Epic edition. Just
marathon edition.
Yeah, the full 6-month sprint from January to fucking June practically. So here we go.
Yeah, get us started, sir.
You want me to get us started? All right. Boy, oh boy. Okay. this is right before the thing that you're probably going to talk about. So on my list, quick thing, and many of our listeners have probably already heard me talk about this, but the Curb Your Enthusiasm last season aired this year. Amazing. I love Curb Your Enthusiasm. It is still to this day, it is my favorite television comedy ever. I've watched many and I love many for different reasons. I'm not saying it's the best, like you can make strong arguments for so many comedic TV shows over the years, but this one personally just hits me in such a way and is like, it is both like when I fall in love with a comedy TV show, I want it to be like this warm blanket of familiarity, but I also want it to be something like genuinely kind of rousing or cutting enough, like humor wise, to always elicit like a certain reaction out of me. And like, I love Friends. The humor's very warm, like a warm blanket, but it sometimes doesn't always have an edge. It's very safe. Curb Your Enthusiasm really plays with more of that line, and I love Larry David so much, and his fictional incarnation of himself, and that show has just meant so much for so many years, and even with their long break, and the fact that they picked it back up, and the last season was so good. It's like he knew the assignment. He was like, this has to be a great season. Like I know I'm getting older. I know maybe my last seasons aren't quite as strong as like some of the OG stuff, but I'm like really going to pull out all the stops for this one. And he did. And like, it was him at his best writing wise. Spoiler alert, they like completely revisit the Seinfeld finale in the finale of this show. Like they essentially recreated
the infamous Seinfeld finale.
Infamous Seinfeld finale. And like, it's so great because they go through the whole thing and you're like, okay. And you start to wonder how, like, has Larry David learned his lesson? Like, does he know what the criticisms of this finale are? Like, is he aware of all this? Like, what's happening? And just when you are thinking like, okay, maybe he hasn't learned anything, he shows you that he has. Mm-hmm. Like at the last literal possible second, he like reminds you, he's like, no, I know where I went wrong all those years ago, and this is it.
Subverts it. Yeah.
And he does just at the right time and just in the right way. And just for any Larry David fan throughout Seinfeld, throughout Curb, it was just endlessly satisfying and the most gigantic wink to the audience and to all the people who cared about him along the way. And it almost moves me to tears that he's like probably retiring and probably not doing this anymore. That show has just meant so much to me, and I can watch it with my spouse and I can watch it with my best of friends, and so many people enjoy it that I care about. And it's such a unique humor. It's so Jewish, and like, I'm not Jewish, but it just, I'm head over heels for him and his humor. And
it has such an idiosyncratic and specific comedy style.
Yeah.
Like it is the
idiosyncrasy.
So specifically Larry David.
Yeah.
I as you know, I could not stand Seinfeld. Because I can't stand any of those characters or their voices. But I've watched
their voices.
I've watched a handful of Curb Your Enthusiasm episodes over the years. I haven't watched it sequentially, but I'll drop in and I very much enjoy it. I like the style of humor a lot. It's just I really didn't like the over the top voices of the main characters of the cast of Seinfeld specifically.
What are we doing?
Oh yeah, it was just so much, and I couldn't stand it. But
I'm Jerry Seinfeld talking. I'm upset about something.
Exactly. Yeah. A little bit goes way too long away for me. But I can so imagine, a year or years from now, just, for fun, turning on Curb Your Enthusiasm and binging my way right through all these seasons, because it's an iconic TV show. I really do adore and respect Larry David himself, and so I'm looking forward to one day making my way through it.
And one last thing before I hang up this one, like part of the joy of this finale, and particularly and also the Seinfeld finale, is that you revisit previous episodes, and it's kind of like a highlight reel of the show. and you get to understand like probably some of the episodes that Larry David finds are the best. And what was so satisfying about that is to see where that lined up with me personally and like the fans. Like he obviously feels the same way about some episodes that we do, like the doll, and like just when when the show is like at its best, at its peak, when he really has cranked out like fucking gold in an episode, he knows it just as well as we do.
Right.
And that's just all baked into this, and it's just so satisfying and fun.
Well,
anyway,
that's
I'll leave it at that. But.
That's a great highlight. I'm glad you let us off with that one. I am going to jump into something that I know that both of us have watched.
I know what you're gonna say,
which is Shogun.
Yeah.
Yes, the excellent adaptation of the epic book.
You haven't read the book, have you?
I have not read the book. I've had it recommended to me by my dad, who read it many years ago. But man, was this fantastic or what? I know that we are not alone here. It was one of the hit shows so far of 2024. But this is just such a beautifully, painstakingly created voyage through medieval feudal Japan. It has such a distinct just visual painting of the world of Japan during this time period.
Still fictional,
but
true to,
but very much based in historical fact.
Yeah.
It's historical fiction for sure, but mostly just the names are changed. To my understanding, like almost all the main characters are based on real people. I just can't wait to talk to you about this. I loved this show. I thought there were some really fantastic performances, particularly Mariko and Toranaga. They were both just really, really well developed and nuanced performances. I think they do a lot with a little. I think just in terms of culturally, like the Japanese style of performance is much more restrained. You and I have talked a lot about the differences between British and American actors.
It's similar.
But I mean, Japanese performance is restrained even more so than British acting is. It is very, very subtle, but really, really impactful, I think. It makes those moments of emotional vulnerability stand out so much more because they are containing so much internally.
And particularly those two performers have a remarkable way of getting that across.
Yeah.
Like you can, I mean, Toranaga might even just be a little more subtle, that actor in terms of his performance. 'Cause like, he is also so complex and like it's so difficult to figure out exactly what he's thinking and where he's coming from. Like, you know, you're in awe of him. You're like, respect him. You're a little afraid, like, you know what I mean? Like,
but you're also like kind of wondering, has he given up? You know, for like half of the season, he's kind of making a show of being very vulnerable and weak. And
us, the audience, are in the same place as the people.
Yes.
You know, in the show, who are speculating: is this shit? Is this? What is this whole thing?
Right.
Like, it's it's cool.
Visually stunning. I mean, really. I mean, even the you and I have talked before about some other shows that make you want to watch the intro sequence, like the credits for the beginning. And this was one of those shows where every time I watched the credits, because they were just beautiful to look at. Yeah. I mean, like the Zen Garden and like the ships, you know, moving through this Zen Garden. It's just really a gorgeously shot show.
It is.
They clearly put a lot of energy and effort into making it, if not historically perfectly accurate, because it is historical fiction, they did a lot of research to make it really feel lived in as a world. The music, I thought, was really excellent as well. It was restrained. I mean, I think just like if there was a word that I could use to describe pretty much the entire show itself, it would be restrained. But that made those moments feel very, very impactful when they happen. So like we're going to be spoiling all sorts of things.
Did it ever feel too restrained for you?
No, I think because that suits my sensibilities for the most part. I prefer that than the kind of more over the top styling of a more Americanized show. But for me, like the moment that really stands out, there are a couple, but when there's an episode that's kind of it revolves around the one American character who is there, this barbarian,
British rather,
the Anjin. Yeah, exactly. I guess he is British. Yeah. And he receives like a pheasant from Toranaga, and he hangs it up, and it's just slowly rotting outside of his house. And he tells his consort and the town basically, like, whoever takes this down must die. And like
he doesn't say that right off the bat. He's like, just don't touch it, and like, because they're freaking out. They're like, ew, it's gonna rot and shit. He's like, no, just don't fucking touch it. Like,
but he does say that. Like,
he does.
His Japanese is limited.
Yes, and he's in a state of kind of like frustration.
Right. But so they take it extremely literally.
Yeah.
And so the gardener eventually, like, on behalf of the town, takes this down and they kill him. And like that whole episode is...
He's like, what? You killed him?
Right. And that was I think it was a perfect microcosm of the whole season, which is about kind of cultural misunderstandings and about death. I mean, I would say that
death is the main
theme of the whole show is death.
Yeah.
But also what death means about life. And like, death is defined. Life is defined by death. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, no, sorry, not as a theme, control, but like, I mean, in general, yes, not to the degree that death is a theme in the show, but, I just think sometimes it's glossed over, but
rules.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But I thought it was such a that episode in particular was a story from beginning to end. Like, you could almost just take that one episode and it would tell such a cohesive story. And I really love that show. It's probably my favorite show that I've seen so far this year.
Wow. Okay. That's quite a statement. I remember at one time before you'd finished it, we had a conversation about, you were saying it's really not centered on the American character. Did the finale episode change your feeling about that at all?
No, I still feel like it's very much about Mariko and Toranaga, and the Anjin is who's the British character. He is kind of the stand-in for the audience to me. Like he is there so that the audience doesn't feel completely.
But he also serves agency. He also has agency and serves function. He does.
Like he plays a role. What I think is funny is when we talked about that, I said it's going to feel like such blue balls if this British guy doesn't finally get his ship.
And I didn't say anything because he fucking didn't.
He doesn't.
I know.
Which I think proves my point, which is that he is very much an afterthought in this world of feudal Japan. He is not the center of the show at all.
Well, he's not the center of the world there, no.
No, he's kind of irrelevant.
Nah, not in the story at all.
No, but you know what I mean.
Sure, in the world and the context of these characters.
Yes.
Sure.
He desperately wants to be...
But irrelevant characters have served big purposes in story since Shakespeare.
Sure. No, I mean, I think, to me, like, what he learns over the course of the season is that it's a very Western idea that, like, you're the main character.
Yeah,
that you are the center of the world. And the season kind of slowly... transformed him, that he realized that he was really just a tiny,
and that your individual life is so valuable
in a much larger picture, and that it wasn't all about him.
Exactly. Yeah.
Really fantastic. I thought that Toranaga's kind of the final moment of the last episode really was just a Just a beautiful performance there,
was.
in particular between Yabushige,
That dickhead.
who's like my favorite character. I think.
I know.
Yeah, and Toranaga. Just
My favorite and least favorite character at the same time,
Yeah.
somehow, if that's
Yeah,
possible.
I had forgotten that when they introduce him in the first episode, he was boiling the Anjin's crew alive in a big pot of water.
Oh, shit.
You remember that?
No, I forgot that.
Yeah, I mean it's really just what a show. What a show. I'm going to be thinking about that. I can't wait for a rewatch of that show.
It was a great mini series that's like fully encapsulated within itself, and
They have announced that there's going to be a second season.
I was just about to say, how could they even? Okay, that isn't okay. All
I
right.
know. It kind of baffles me a little bit because it feels like it was such a cohesive story on its
That
own.
sounds cash grabby off the bat. Not gonna lie,
But yeah, we'll see.
but okay. Dum-de-dum-de-doo. More TV shows, films.
I feel like we're working out the muscles, guys. It's been a while since we've been at this.
Yeah, we are. I feel rusty as balls. I'm gonna cut a lot of this out. Okay, X-Men '97.
Yeah, let's do it.
Just a little bit.
Sure.
It's so good. I ended up going through like everything that I've watched and like giving like a numerical rating to almost everything. Curb in last season finale and last season was like a 10.
Wow.
I gave that a fucking 10. I don't care. I love it.
Wow.
I mean, that's just in my heart, but again, with just everything that he pulled off and the referential shit to previous seasons, and it was just so true to himself and the show and everything and his history and anything. Anyway, X-Men '97, I gave a 9.
It's pretty good.
It's really good, man. Like I just really want you to watch it.
So this is an animated show.
It is an animated show. So there was a series that ran from like 1993 maybe to 96. I think it was only about 3 seasons, maybe 4. And it was an animated X-Men show. Roughly in this, it's kind of in the same world as like the animated Spider-Man series of the same time frame. You know, anyone who grew up when we grew up would have probably seen this show if you watched cartoons or like superheroes. But it's not for everybody. But this X-Men '97 is essentially saying, what if instead of ending in 1996, there was a final season in 1997, or well, there might even be more seasons of this, but an additional season, let's say in 1997. What would that look like?
Continuing that story.
Yeah, so completely continuing that story, same characters. They brought back as many of the same voice actors as they could. The animation style is the same. It's definitely updated and digitized, but it's similar. But not just that. I mean, maybe all of this is true of like the previous season, but I just didn't, I guess, realize. I was too young. I was a kid, but I did not realize you can watch this as an adult. Like it's at least this modern interpretation. You can watch it as an adult. Like the writing is really, really strong. Like way stronger than it should be. Like it seems like it would be some goofy animated thing. It is more sophisticated even than What If.
Wow.
What If has like cinematic level writing. This is like good cinematic level writing, like really good cinematic level writing. Like you just, and it's really more true to the X-Men characters in comics. I mean, Cyclops is actually a big main character, not like in the movies, but like in the comics, he's the leader of the X-Men. He's a big guy. The whole season opens with like the fallout from Charles Xavier not being there anymore. You've got Cyclops leading things. I mean, it just the relationship between him and Jean Grey. Jean Grey has a clone named Madeline Pryor. Like, it gets really weird, wacky, comic booky stuff. All your favorite villains are in there, like Mr. Sinister, and I don't know. It's just so much fun. Like, it's like watching the cartoons that I grew up with, but as an adult and written with enough sophistication for adults to enjoy and get a lot out of. There's themes about family, and like Storm goes through this whole arc where she loses her powers. her representation as this like black woman goddess, like who's the leader of a nation, and like truly, like of all the X-Men too, she is like kind of a goddess with her abilities, and she actually in the comics has this history of being worshipped as a goddess by some people, like and then she kind of like was like, ooh, that went to my head, I'm getting away from that. Like she did leave that life, but she is such a being and like is so powerful and grew up in a world not like Logan or the other X-Men. Like she grew up in Africa and was, literally revered as a goddess, and just has this whole other different experience. Just seeing what all these characters who are really true to their traditional form, like all brought together, and what they bring, and the character of Gambit, and I can't even get into what Gambit does in this season of this show, and like it's amazing the way the characters care about each other, the way Rogue cares about Gambit, and like I was just reminded about so many things about these characters, like the way Gambit is. Like you don't see him in movies and stuff, so just falling in love with these characters kind of all over again. And Magneto is such a fucking awesome guy, such a badass.
Yeah.
He actually, like in Charles's will and testament, he puts Magneto in charge of the X-Men. That's how the season starts.
Yeah.
It's like, and while at the same time, Magneto's like standing trial at the UN for his atrocities, and like it's deep, man.
Yeah,
it's serious shit.
Well, and I
So
always
good.
felt like the X-Men was the most culturally daring of the Marvel projects. Like
Without
I
a
felt like
doubt.
they were really exploring some real issues, like geopolitical issues and ideas of like belonging and of
Exactly.
marginalization listen to what I'm saying, like those are very present issues in our society today. Like there's almost never there couldn't be a better time to kind of reintroduce these concepts in this context. So I'm really looking forward to watching this. I haven't gotten around to it yet, but I have heard such great things, not just from you. I mean, PCHH, the NPR podcast, they loved it as well. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I say check it out.
Well,
do you got?
next up on my list here is something else that we have watched. In fact, we watched it together,
Oh yeah, what was that?
which is Dune Part 2.
Part 2.
Yes, we saw it in theaters.
We.
This is no surprise to anyone because it's like one of the biggest movies out there right now. It's got old Timothée Chalamet. It's got Zendaya. It's Dune.
Austin Butler.
It's Dune, man. It's the Denis Villeneuve production here on the planet Arrakis.
Villeneuve's Dune.
It's a very thinly veiled analogy for the oil trade in the Middle East. Of course, it is
say.
indeed. It's a in their world they call it spice, and it is this substance that allows them to travel between galaxies and things that do faster than light travel. But it's not so hard to figure out that that's really about oil in our modern world. I enjoyed it. I think that the things that really stood out to me are the same things that stood out in part 1, which are that the sound mixing is fantastic, really just beautiful to listen to.
And the score.
The score is fantastic as well. And then of course visually it's stunning. They did a lot of shots on location, which I think stands out in this Marvel world where everything is on green screens. The fact that it was really shot on location, you can tell, and it's worth the money they put into it.
Definitely.
It looks absolutely beautiful.
And it doesn't take away from something like a fucking 300-foot sandworm looking really good.
It looks really, really good. It's
does,
one of
yeah.
the nicest movies to look at that I've seen in a good long time.
It's like seamless.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you do not really find yourself thinking, oh, that looks like a special effect. Like
It's
no.
awe-inspiring,
Yeah.
I would say, which is the effect they're going for. These sandworms are like almost kind of godlike on
Yeah.
this planet,
Yeah.
and they are awe-inspiring.
Yeah, they are.
What stood out to you in Dune Part 2?
Austin Butler stood out to me, actually. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was joking about him, but his performance did stand out to
Bad
me
guy?
because I had seen him as
I don't even remember his character's name, but
Fade.
Fade Rotha.
Yeah, Fade
Yeah.
Rotha. So I think that's the character that Sting played in the David Lynch one
Okay,
with Kyle MacLachlan, but I'm pretty sure it is. But in
he's
any
like
case,
he's like the nephew of Skarsgård,
yes, whatever that guy's name is, I forget.
Baron Harkonnen.
Exactly. Yes. Anyway, and so he'd be like a cousin or whatever of the Dave Bautista character.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. But in any case, his performance was really good. Like, I thought he was remarkably menacing. Like, I've only seen him in Elvis, and I saw him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He actually played Tex. It's like one of the guys who was like one of the Manson people. And he actually is pretty menacing there too. So he did have it in him, but he really cranks it up to like 11 here. And he even kind of goes like over the top theatrical to some degree with his performance, but it works like within context of the world. And I found like him to be genuinely like intimidating. And it's kind of sad that he died so quickly in a way. Like I was
Yeah,
kind of excited about him as a villain.
He was a lot more interesting than Batista.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even Harkonnen. Like Harkonnen's really pretty cool, but it's a lot of floating and sitting in black oil and
Sure.
the energy that Fade had was
Chaotic.
yeah. It was cool. Like he's a talented actor, Austin Butler. Like I think he's easy to be the butt of the joke sometimes, but he's a talented guy and so good for him. But other than that, yeah, like you said, a lot of what stood out was just kind of the same things that stood out from one, just impeccably made. And I enjoy them as I watch them. I also check my watch once or twice.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then I get to the end and I'm like, oh, that was great. And they still leave me a bit cold. And I don't know why. I've seen both of them in the theaters both times. I like all the actors. I love the director. But like, I'd rather go watch Blade Runner 2049 again than any of these movies. The same director.
I know what you mean. Like it's good, but it doesn't leave like a lasting impression. It's not like a movie that you think about all that much after you've seen it, I don't think.
No, and so even though it's going to be a bit like, okay, like Christopher Nolan can be kind of very cold as a director, and like his movies can be kind of hard to connect with emotionally in a way, but maybe they'll make you think after. Like in this movie, I'm not saying it doesn't make you think at all or anything like that, but like you kind of just said, I'm not mulling over it after with some takeaway.
No.
I'm not blown away in such a way by the performances that I'm moved emotionally that I'm taking that with me later. It's like what I take away from the theater is the awe of it.
Yeah.
And that just ends up feeling a little bit hollow for me.
I think my problem is that there's so much that they could mine, and pun is certainly intended here, for like there's a lot of moral ambiguity that I think could exist in this movie, but it's not all that interesting or compelling from that standpoint. I mean, you know, this Timothy Chalamet character is this prophet, kind of like he's like a chosen one type, and there's this faction of the Fremen who kind of, you know, don't believe that he's the chosen one. And I feel like that is where you could have a lot more tension around, like, here's this white dude who comes to this planet, and he's like their you know, savior. A bunch of the population thinks that he's going to save them all, and he's destined to be whatever. And like, I feel like that is ripe for like challenging, you know, and picking apart and thinking about like how that shows up. And I just don't feel like they've really done that much of that.
There was some of it in the film, but it scratched the surface.
Yeah.
And
maybe they'll prove me wrong in the third movie, but I'm kind of thinking not. Like, I think this is what we're going to get, to be honest.
I'm not even sure the film like made up its mind about how it feels about that.
Right.
Because like I couldn't tell even as I watched it, like was Chalamet from one moment I'd be like, oh, he doesn't want to be this savior, and then next moment I'd be like, oh, he's into it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He couldn't make up his mind. The movie couldn't make up its mind. They didn't delve into that enough. Like, I agree with you, and I don't think the movie took enough of a stance one way or the other about how it feels about Paul Atreides. Like,
it's a little vanilla.
yeah, it's just kind of like, oh, here you go. Here's what's in the book.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
But the book does have a lot more moral ambiguity there.
Okay.
Definitely. I've read the first one. I haven't read more than that, but it's definitely not as cut and dry as it's portrayed in these movies. So
Why is this movie so hard to make?
Well, I mean, I think that you kind of put it right there. Like, I think there is something to be said for the fact that these books are renowned for being difficult to adapt. And so there is just an accomplishment in being able to put them on screen at all in a way that is cohesive. And they've definitely done that. I mean, they've made a ton of money on these movies and justified their creation, I think, which was the first goal, right? Like, I mean, they didn't even know that they were going to make a second one initially because there was such a huge hurdle for Denis Villeneuve to show that this could be something that could draw audiences. So mission accomplished. Like, they've definitely done that. That said, it does leave me wanting, for sure.
Exactly.
What else you got?
Well said. I got all kinds of shit, but the only thing you're going to probably want to talk about is Madam Web.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Ooh, this is going to be fun.
Madam Web. Madam Web. I might have said on this podcast at one time, I was like, I think this has the potential to be a pretty good movie.
No.
And you know what, though?
Oh, no.
I maintain that on paper, and if you dial it back, and if you look at, clearly this movie is something that fell apart in post-production.
Okay.
ADR, editing, like... I think this movie, it ended up being something different in post-production, I think, than it was originally, and I think that is where it really Frankensteined itself into the mess that it became. And there was issues along the way in terms of performances and execution.
How do you know that it was any better?
I'm just saying that on paper, the idea of this movie wasn't the worst thing in the world.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I think on paper it was a cute idea for a movie. Oh, a young Madam Web recruits these spider ladies. Ezekiel Sims is a pretty cool villain if he actually had a cohesive backstory.
Oh my god, he was the worst part of this movie.
But in theory, on paper, when you describe, if you were pitching the movie to me, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm with you. But anyway, it was a disaster.
It was the punching bag. I think it's the punching bag of 2024. I think it's easy to say that, right? Like, everyone has just gotten their shots off on this movie.
Maybe overly deserved, even.
Okay.
Do you disagree? It was a bad movie, but I feel like people were punching on it before they've even seen it and shit. And it's easy to learn. Haha, Dakota Johnson. I mean, it was not a good movie. It was terrible, actually.
I'm seeing you pulling at straws, trying to defend this movie. It was I'm very bad movie.
I just think that piling on is sometimes.
I agree that can be tiresome.
Yeah.
That said, I honestly had a good time watching this movie with you because it was so bad. Like, there is something to be said for a movie that's so bad that you kind of enjoy the experience because it's just fun to watch and laugh at.
That's a huge thing. If this movie falls into the category of so bad it's good, which even that's debatable. I wouldn't say so bad it's good because I've seen
good is doing a lot of work in that sentence.
I love good bad movies.
Yeah.
This was a bad movie, but an entertaining bad
definitely
movie.
Entertaining. Yeah.
Let's say that.
Yeah. I think it's worth mentioning that this was written by the people who wrote Morbius, which was another famous punching bag.
This is worse.
Is it worse? I didn't see Morbius.
Oh, I saw this way worse. Dude.
Okay.
Because this is actually like a poor production. I mean, let's back up a little bit. So, I gave you a kind of a quick plot synopsis, but the main things with this movie are I mean, the performances are not great. They're not good. But what really got me, like, I gave up on this movie after like 45 minutes because, like, mentally, like, I watched the whole thing with you, but I was checked out and I was drinking as much anything as I could get my hands on. We're having like a drinking game kind of to this movie.
Yeah.
But the fact that there was like this atrocious ADR.
Yeah, that was it was unforgivable. The ADR was unforgivable for any movie. Any movie.
For any professional movie. For Sony Pictures Studios. Sony Columbia Pictures. Fucking A. Like, for their legacy. For, like, Columbia Pictures' legacy. To put out this fucking movie with ADR like that. And for those who don't know what ADR is, it's, what does it stand for?
Audio,
or it's like after dialogue recording, or I don't know. It's something. Anyway, tell me. But what it is basically an actor, after they shoot the scene, the audio in the scene that they shot isn't quite good enough, so they have to go into a booth after the fact and re-record the audio from their scenes. Famously, at least for me, Heath Ledger did not need ADR on The Dark Knight, which was a huge relief. All the audio captured in his scenes was good and he didn't need to do any ADR, which was good because he was dead. So he couldn't do ADR.
So ADR stands for Automated Dialogue Replacement, which is to improve the sound quality of an actor's dialogue after filming wraps.
Yeah, okay. So a better summary, I guess, than my ramble. But
so they replaced the main villain's dialogue in this movie with nonsense. And it is
ADR is to replace the but ADR is to replace the existing dialogue. It is very clear here that they re-recorded dialogue for this character.
Yeah.
The words he's saying
are completely different than the ones that his mouth is moving.
Lips.
Yeah, it is so bad. I have never ever seen
like
a movie with this obvious of ADR.
No.
Yeah, it was horrible.
It looks like dubbing. It looks like he's speaking in another language and they're dubbing it. That's what it looks like. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild. Yeah. And then you add that to Dakota Johnson just being lackluster.
Lackluster is putting it very kindly.
Okay. Her just being her. I mean, like, I was showing Annika a clip of it the other day because now it's on Netflix and they, when you hover over a movie on Netflix, it shows you his little preview and it's showing Dakota Johnson and she's like, run. He's coming to get you. Run. Watch out. Look. Hey, watch out. Run.
Get down.
Get down. Watch. Get down.
That was so we did play a drinking game. And one of the things is whenever Dakota Johnson tells people to get down, you have to take a drink.
Whenever she hits someone with a car.
Which happens multiple times.
Whenever Pepsi shows up.
Yeah.
Pepsi is everywhere in this movie. The villain gets crushed by a giant Pepsi sign. Like, literally, a fucking Pepsi sign is what kills the villain. Like, dude, that's some killer product placement. No pun intended.
I will say, I encourage our audience to go and watch it if you haven't, just because of how laughably bad this movie is.
Definitely get drunk and or stoned first. Or both. Man.
Yeah. By far the worst movie I've seen this year.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe ever? No.
Not ever.
I will say the Dungeons and Dragons movie with Jeremy Irons is the worst movie I've ever seen.
Okay, I thought you were going to say the new one. I was like, that
No, I very much enjoyed that one. Yeah, Honor Among Thieves. That's a great movie. We reviewed that on this channel, I think.
We did. But, yes, the worst movie this year so far, and I watch a lot of bad movies. I was just watching part of the Meg 2.
Oof.
This is way worse than that.
Ouch.
Meg 2 wasn't that bad. It was actually more interesting than I was expecting.
Goddamn.
Anyway.
Well, I got another one for you. I'm going to take a bit of a left turn here and review a book that I read while I was in Costa Rica. Called If We Were Villains.
Okay.
This is a little bit of a different type of book than I usually read. I'm kind of a fantasy guy. And this one was a kind of a murder mystery, I would say.
It's cool.
It's about these actors who are at a conservatory in the Midwest. They're Shakespearean actors at a very expensive kind of private school where they're, it's very prestigious, and the people who graduate from this school are kind of guaranteed to be in all of the greatest Shakespearean theater productions in the U.S. and in the world, in London and whatnot. And as things progress throughout the semester, these tensions in the plays that they're performing are kind of becoming real tensions among the actors themselves, and it results in a murder. And then kind of there's a kind of a, I guess, oh man, I'm struggling for words here, but it's kind of an uncertainty around where the acting begins and where this real murderous intent
Reality
really lies.
blurs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I had just a great time reading this book, and it ends, I would say, mostly satisfying. I think.
Does it make you wonder what's what still at the end?
Very much so, and it's unsettled. It gives you enough to feel like you kind of know what's going on, but it leaves this kind of hanging loose thread where you're not quite sure. And I just loved it. I'm a big
That's awesome.
Shakespeare guy in general, and it rekindled my love of Shakespeare. So now I am wanting to go back and read all those plays again, just because I will say it's a very nerdy book. Like for people who are language nerds and who are English majors, they're going to eat it up because
It's referencing all that all the time.
Absolutely. There's lots of quotations of Shakespearean dialogue and whatnot. And so, people who really like that are going to eat it up.
That's
as
cool.
I did. But I think for people who just like a good story, it'll be a fast read too. So yeah, got to recommend that one.
Remind me the name.
If We Were Villains.
Okay. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. You and your Shakespeare stuff. It sounds a bit like what was that show? Fuck.
Oh yeah, the post-apocalyptic shit. Station 11.
Yeah.
I loved
Doesn't
that too.
actually sound like that, but
Yeah. And I will say, you're going to love this. It made me want to get a tattoo of some Shakespearean verse.
oh, some quotes.
I think I'm going to.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I know.
What verse?
I have some ideas on my phone on a
Caliban.
notes app. Yeah.
Just kidding. Really? Like what? From what plays?
Well, they're from a number of plays, but they're
sonnets.
No, they're not sonnets, but they're from a handful of plays. They're just things that I feel like are kind of appropriate to life.
Look at you.
Yeah.
I've got some ideas on the back burner. You want to go get them together?
Let's go. Let's do it.
Why the hell not?
Definitely. Katie got 2 tattoos while she was in Europe.
Wowie.
Yeah.
Wow. Sounds like my woman running off getting tattoos all the fucking time.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
You got one more for us, and then maybe we can close out?
Sure thing. You want to talk about... Did you watch all of Fallout?
I haven't watched any of Fallout.
Oh,
I really
nuts.
want to. Maybe more than any other show, I really want to watch Fallout.
It's not like you've seen any of the other things that I'm going to talk about here, so... All right, let's talk about Fallout.
Do it.
Fallout was really cool. I was not super sure about it right off the bat. I mean, I wasn't. It was good. Like, it was enough to sustain my interest for sure. But I don't have any familiarity with the game. Never played it. It makes me want to play them. I guess they're kind of old now. I wish there was one that had come out kind of recently, like Fallout 4.
Yeah,
It was wet. Like,
it was in the late 2010s. I remember
like same
Henry.
age as like Red Dead.
Henry was. Yeah, that sounds about right. Henry was playing it
probably
when we
get
lived
into
together.
it.
Yeah.
Like maybe I should try like Fallout 4.
Yeah.
I've thought about that. In any case, the show. I mean, overall, really, really strong. I think PCHH kind of did encapsulate it well. If you listen to that, it doesn't always focus on the things that you want the show to focus on, perhaps, or there are so many side stories or stories in the past or things that are going on that sometimes you're not always like where you want to be with these characters. But they're all really, really compelling characters. All the stuff like with the vault is really, really cool. The main girl, it does such a great job in terms of her performance. Like she is kind of, innocent and well-meaning, but she she gets out into the wasteland and she learns very, very quickly about how harsh it is, and she has to kill people and cut off heads, and it's very violent.
Yeah,
so if you're down with that kind of thing, but she's really, really great. The guy who's in the metal suit, I forget what their group are called, but these warriors, these knights, that's what they are, and they have like squires and shit. These knights, they're pretty cool. That character's really, really compelling. Really well acted, an understated performance. Like he kind of plays him like a goofball, but like a lot of these characters have this naivete to them because they didn't grow up in like the world as we know it. They grew up in this post-apocalyptic wasteland, and they just don't have the same connections with other people, and they don't know about sex and like all these things. They're just like they're kind of like children, adults. And then the third kind of main protagonist is the Ghoul, and he's Walton Goggins, and he's this where you want the show to like focus even more is on him and his backstory. Like I feel like the show will like start to tell you about the backstory of the Ghoul, and you're like, oh my god, I want to keep knowing about this, and then it like brings you back into the present or something, and you're like, oh shit, well I kind of want to know more about what happened to the Ghoul. Like he's lived for like 200 years. He used to be an actor who like worked for music. He was like a famous actor, and then he worked for Vault Tech, the company who made all the vaults.
Right.
And he was like kind of the poster child for that. So he's like on all these billboards and stuff. And he 200 years later, he's this monster, this like irradiated monster. And he's a complete Western, like he's a total Western gunslinger character, mean dude. And it just like how he got from there to there. He had a daughter back when he was a human being. He had a wife. The more I watched that show, the more I liked it. And the whole 1940s, 50s retro futuristic aesthetic is so cool. All the music, they have this like old timey music constantly. The aesthetic of the show is very, very cool. Sometimes I couldn't help but feel like the show was shot on like a soundstage. Or I felt like one of those video walls or something, but in a way that felt very small.
Oh.
That's my only criticism.
I don't love that.
Yeah, that sounds bad. Maybe it was just me. Maybe it was just my television. I don't know. Like, everything else about it, though, is so good. Like, again, I gave it a 9 out of 10 in my notes. Like, it's really, really good and so unique and different and, like, worth watching. I just felt sometimes, like, there's certain scenes, like, there's this little town, and I'm like, is this town, like, 50 yards across? Like, I don't know. That might be my only criticism, but it was awesome, dude. Like, and the costumes and everything, like it's a great production overall.
I'm super excited to watch it. I mean, like I said, this is it's probably the thing I'm most excited to watch that I haven't seen yet. And as we mentioned in our preview of 2024, this does feel kind of like the year of video game adaptations.
Yeah,
I
good
think
ones.
I think last year with Last of Us and the Mario movie, like I feel like it kind of
didn't like
it. Well, no, but it broke the door wide open to these video game adaptations, which studios had been kind of hesitant to do because they hadn't been that successful.
They
but
were Assassin's Creed and shit.
for sure. I mean, they're making a million of them now. I
Yeah.
mean, and so I'm sure a lot of them will suck, but at the same time, as a video game fan, like I'm very excited to see some of these things that I have felt like there's so much ripe for the picking. Like there's some great stories to be told in video games.
Bring out the Red Dead movie or show.
Oh, that would
dude.
be great. And
Or
I
Red
think
Dead show.
I think we're gonna probably do an episode at some point about our casting ideas.
never did that.
We haven't done it yet,
Oh my
but
God,
now that
dude.
you've played Red Dead Redemption 2, we're gonna have to talk about our casting ideas for a Red Dead Redemption TV show. Ideally, a TV show. I think that it's too long a story
it'd
for a
have to be.
movie.
It's not even as fresh in my memory now. Like I almost want to go play it again. Dude, sometimes I'm just sitting there at 5 o'clock after work or whatever, and I'm like, it's like I miss having like that game to just like eat up 10 hours of my life.
But there's so many like that. I mean,
Yeah.
video game. I will say there's some great writing in video games because it has to put the player in this interactive world where they feel like they are exploring the world and there's a story to be told that
they
they are
care
the
about
center
it.
of. They
Yeah.
are the character.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of room to grow there. I'm really looking forward to seeing some of these things get adapted.
That's awesome, man. Me as well. Well.
There's a couple more coming out this year. I mean, I know like there's that Tomb Raider movie coming out, and there's going to be a second season of The Last of Us coming out.
The Mortal Kombat movie was better than the old Mortal Kombat
Really?
movie.
Yeah.
You never saw it?
No.
Tornaga's in it.
Oh yeah, he's a very famous Japanese actor.
He
I know
is,
he's
yeah.
been in a ton of stuff. But,
Definitely.
well, this is fun, man.
Dang, just
We're-
an hour, we'll keep it kind of short, but
Yeah, back on the wagon.
this is all we have in us now these days, people. So, you know what?
We will see you when we see you.
We'll see you when you see it. But hey, just to point out, there's a few things that I'm looking forward to, and we didn't even talk about Civil War,
No,
by
we
the
didn't.
way. But maybe another time.
Yeah, what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to Furiosa,
Yep, that's coming out soon.
Deadpool and Wolverine
Oh, so excited for that.
coming out soon, very very soon. Alien Romulus is going to be at some point this year. The teaser trailer was outstanding. Yeah, you sound thrilled.
I'm thrilled.
I think that's it off top that I can think of here. We still haven't seen Fall Guy. I really want to see that. There's
Yeah.
just some fun movies out right now.
Yeah,
But-
yeah. I mean, like it felt like there was a bit of a logjam at the beginning of this year, and the dam has broken, and there's just a lot of really great stuff coming out. So
I want to see the new Planet of the Apes. Like, I'll see it.
I don't know
you
about that one.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. That's okay.
Yeah, but there should be plenty for us to talk about for 2024, the rest of 2024. So hopefully we'll see you sooner rather than later, folks.
That's right. Adios.
Later.